welcome back to Sioux Online. Today we will be going right to the top. We have Christian Provenzano with us, who's contending for the mayor's seat in the October 27th election. Hello, Christian.
How you doing, Mike?
Fine, thank you.
Thanks for having me today.
You're welcome. You've been in the public eye for quite some time now. But for the people that don't know you that well,
Yeah.
could you tell us something about yourself?
Sure. I was born and raised in Sault Ste. Marie. I went to Sister Mary Clare Elementary School. It's no longer open, but I went there. And then I went to St. Mary's College. When I finished St. Mary's College, I went to the University of Waterloo. And I did my first degree at the University of Waterloo. When I was finished my degree, I stuck around for a year, and I was the president of the student union at the University of Waterloo. That was an elected position. It was the first time I had run for something. I was successful. The student union had about 150 employees at a $4 million operating budget. And we had a council of about, I'd say there was about 18 counselors. It's quite a while back now, so I don't specifically recall, but there was probably about a dozen and a half. Each faculty had a number of counselors. And I did that for a year. It was a great experience. And then I went to law school. I went to Dalhousie Law, which is in Halifax, Nova Scotia. When I finished law school, I moved to Ottawa, and I did my bar course in Ottawa, and I moved back to Sault Ste. Marie in 2002. I've been practicing law in Sault Ste. Marie since then with my father and some other gentlemen, and that's going well. So that's my general timeline. In more specific ways, I've worked since I was 13. I've always had a job. I started working at the Stell Hotel when I was going into grade 9. I used to take bags off the buses as they were coming in for the tour train. And I've worked since. And I've worked in the automotive industry, I've worked in hospitality, I've worked in food and beverage, I've worked in politics.
Okay. Well, in your law practice, what kind of law do you?
We have a fairly general practice. We do very little criminal work, next to no criminal work, and we do a little bit of family law work. But what we mainly do is corporate commercial work, some small business work, wills, estates, real estate, the type of things that people need on a daily basis. And I would do all the civil litigation, so I do all the courtroom work. So if there's a matter that's going to go to trial, or there's a disputed matter, I would generally handle that.
So this would help you in your job as mayor if you won.
Well, I think a lot of the skills that I've picked up in my professional career, practicing law and other things I've done, will help me. But it's useful to understand how legislation works, understand how law works, understand how process works. It's also useful, I think, to have experience in dispute resolution.
Mm-hmm. At the mayoral debate, I asked you a couple of questions, and I wasn't satisfied with the answers I got. But the first one was that people see this race as a two-person race. Can you comment on that?
You're probably not going to be satisfied again. You had asked me that at the mayoral debate, and my answer was sincere. And I don't think it's for me to judge who's in this race or out of this race. I, like you, have one vote. I knew who I'm casting my vote for. But as an elector, I have one vote. All I can do is focus on our campaign and the campaign that we've run. And I'm really proud of what we've done, and I think we've run a really active campaign. And frankly, I can say that I think we've run a much more active campaign than any of the other 5 mayoral candidates. But it's not for me to decide who's in the race and who's out of the race. It's for the city of Sault Ste. Marie to decide who's in the race and who's out of the race.
Okay, question 2. Debbie Amaroso has been criticized for taking credit for the new deep sea harbor that we might get. What do you say to that?
Well, that project's been around for a while, and there are a lot of people that have worked on that project, and I think we need to give those people due recognition. What's happened most recently, it's not a matter of having now got the port. There's some provincial and federal money that's being contributed towards doing some studies and some environmental assessments. We're still years away from that. We have to acknowledge, though, the hard work that previous mayors have done in this file. And we have to acknowledge the hard work that David Orzetti has done in this file, and previous members, prior to David. So I don't think that it would be fair for any specific person to say, look at what happened on my watch. If the community determines that that's what the mayor's saying, then the community can assess that as they see fit. It's a long-term project, and by no means is it yet secured. So there's a lot of work left to do, and if it was something to happen, if I'm fortunate enough to be elected and I'm trusted with that responsibility, and that comes to pass during my time in the mayor's office, I would make it very clear that I was only part of that process, but certainly in no ways responsible for it actually coming to completion. The port will be something that political leaders will have to build on for years, and none of us in the end, if it comes to pass, will be solely responsible for it.
We've been chasing that deep sea port for over 40 years when I was a teenager. And it's always been on the books.
Well, when they made the funding announcement, which occurred during the municipal campaign, Ron Irwin gave me a call. Ron Irwin was a mayor of Sault Ste. Marie, and he kind of chuckled and he said, "That's funny, Christian." He said, "When I was the mayor of Sault Ste. Marie, I made a port announcement too, you know." And I know he was the mayor of Sault Ste. Marie quite a while back. So it's been on the books for a long time, and it was something that, you know, we should acknowledge that the late Mayor John Rowswell was really aggressive about for years.
Speaking about John, you've mentioned him a few times during this election. Could you compare the way John ruled, may I say, ruled City Hall as compared to what our present mayor has done in the last 4 years?
Well, from my perspective, and I dealt with John. I had a lot of experience with John, and John and I had a good relationship. From my perspective, John was a very strong-willed man who really cared about the community quite deeply and really worked hard for the community. And he was very very passionate about his ideas. I think some of the fundamental differences between John's time in the mayor's office and what we've seen over the last 4 years is that John was very active in getting out there and championing Sault Ste. Marie. During John's last term as the mayor, I was actually working in Ottawa for a period on Parliament Hill, and my office was in Centre Block, and you know where the Peace Tower is, and I faced out towards Langevin Blanc, which is where the Prime Minister's office is. And there was more than one occasion when I was at work, when I was standing looking out the window thinking about something or talking on my phone about a matter, and I see John. I would see Mayor Rowswell standing in front of the House of Commons. And sure enough, when I saw him, I knew he would make his way around to my office. Because when he was in Ottawa or he was in Toronto, he was telling people about Sault Ste. Marie and what it needed, and whoever would listen. And when I would tell somebody I was from Sault Ste. Marie, they would immediately say to me, "Your mayor's John Rowswell." Boy, is that guy ever aggressive.
Yeah.
And there's a lot to be said for that, because the way I see this role is we have a number of political leaders in the community and a number of community leaders, right? We have the president of our university, who is a leader, and it's his responsibility to lead the university. And we have the president of our college, who is a leader, and it's his responsibility to lead the college. David's a leader, and it's his responsibility to represent us in Toronto, and you know, it's Brian's responsibility to represent us in Ottawa. So the aldermen are all leaders too, and it's their responsibility to represent their wards and the city. The mayor is the only political leader in this community that has one responsibility. It's not divided. So the mayor is not responsible to Ottawa, and the mayor is not responsible to Ontario, the province of Ontario. The mayor is not responsible to a ward. It's the mayor's responsibility to bring the community together. And I think you need a really active mayor to do that. I think the mayor has to get kind of everybody going off in the same direction. Has to make sure that our provincial rep and our federal rep are working on similar projects and working together. Has to make sure that the college and university are involved in that. Right? So the mayor really, to me, is the tie that binds. And that is how I see the role, and that is how I will approach the role if I'm fortunate enough to be voted into it.
Having said that, at the mayoral debate, you mentioned leadership. What do you have to to bring to the table that's been missing in the last 4 years?
Well, I think there's two things that we could cover here that are relevant to your question. I had mentioned earlier that I have a significant amount of work experience in different industries. That's true, and I think that's very helpful, having worked in a number of different industries. But with that, I've lived in a number of different cities. I have lived in Waterloo. I have lived in Toronto. I have lived in Ottawa. I have lived in Halifax. I have seen how things work elsewhere. And as a result of those experiences and my life experiences, I have a lot of political experience and political connection. This is a political job. Whoever is running for mayor is asking for a political job, is looking to lead a political body. The council is a political body. I have relationships in Ottawa. I have relationships in Ontario. I bring those already developed to the table. Now, will I go and develop more, and will I look to develop more for the benefit of the city? Absolutely. But I'm not starting from scratch. I'm starting with that established. But I think a big part of leadership is acknowledging where the challenges are and focusing people's attention on them. I don't think it's the mayor's job to say, this is how we have to do this. I think it's the mayor's job to say, look, this is obviously an issue in our community. It's not a criticism, it's just a fact. And we have to address this issue together. So who are the right people to bring together to address that issue? What can we do about our crime rate in the downtown area? Who are the right parties to bring together to that table? So the leadership job is really a job of saying, look, I'm not married to the status quo. I have no relationship to it or interest in it. I'm not concerned about making friends. I have a number that I care about deeply. I have an amazing family and support system. I care solely and specifically about the health and vibrancy of this community. So you saw it with the PUC issue. The PUC issue is a good example of the issue I'm raising with leadership. My entire point on the PUC issue was this. When there's a ward problem, the ward councillor should be addressing that. I would support the ward councillors. But when there's a problem that transcends the wards, that isn't specific to Ward 1 or Ward 2 or Ward 3, but is something that a number of people in the city are concerned about, that problem then becomes the mayor's responsibility. And what I was saying was, if I was the mayor over the last 4 years, I would have become involved in the PUC issue. And if I am the mayor over the next 4 years, I will become involved in the PUC issue. Leadership is about taking responsibility. It's also about knowing your responsibilities. And I want the community to appreciate and know that I understand the Municipal Act. I've read it. Section 69 of the Municipal Act says the mayor isn't simply the mayor. The mayor is the chief executive officer of the corporation. And Section 70 of the Municipal Act outlines what the mayor's responsibilities are. I know them. I've read them. So leadership is about acknowledging what your responsibilities are and making sure you fulfill your responsibilities.
Amaroso's camp sent out a press release on the 16th that was sent from a city email account address. In it, it belittled you for proposing something that's been going on already at City Hall. Do you think an apology that was sent out today is enough?
Well, I'd have two comments on that. The first comment is the press release you're referring to was in response to a policy I put out about a vacant management process. I would suggest it's misleading to say that the city has a policy on that. I think what the mayor said is the city has a practice on that. And what I'm proposing is very different. A policy is a structured process you go through. It is not only transparent, it actually ensures that things are approached fairly and properly and consistently time over time. A practice is somebody sitting at a desk making a decision. So I had some really smart people working with me on these things and talking about these ideas, and I also had some pretty smart people helping me research them. And I can tell you that we looked and we looked and we looked hard for a policy at City Hall that was doing what we proposed, and we didn't find one. So I don't believe there is a policy. And if there is, they're not implementing it very well, because costs continue to rise. And I referenced in our release when we proposed our policy that Sudbury proposed a similar one a couple of years ago. They implemented it and they've saved $500,000. So if they're doing it, I don't believe they're doing it well. But I think what they have is a practice and what I'm proposing is a policy. So I think the mayor is incorrect on that. I'm not looking for any apologies on anything. This is a political race. I'm going to run my race up to my standards, and I'm going to hold myself to a standard that I think is appropriate. I can't hold other people to a standard that I would hold myself to. People have to hold themselves to their own standards. So if the mayor, if the mayor felt okay with what the mayor said there, and if the mayor felt okay with the way she said it, that's the mayor's responsibility to run the campaign she sees fit to run.
But she crossed the line as far as election rules go by allowing this campaign person to do that.
Well, yeah.
Maybe she didn't know, like she said,
Sure.
she didn't know. But is an apology enough to compensate for what happened?
Are you asking about an apology to me or an apology?
No.
Because she wasn't apologizing to me.
No,
Yeah,
she apologized to the citizenry for having that happen. Now,
Well, I think that's the citizenry's decision to make, right? So, do people think that that's sufficient? Yeah, there's a very specific provision in the Municipal Act that says you can't do what they had done. Now, people make mistakes. I certainly don't want to create a problem for either the mayor or the volunteer that did that, and I won't create a problem. I've made it very clear to the people that are around my campaign involved in it that we will not make a complaint about that, and we do not want to make a complaint about that. Should the mayor have been more careful about that? Absolutely. Should it have happened? It wouldn't have. But there's a separate issue here that I would address if I was the mayor, is that we don't have any specific policies and procedures in City Hall to say that this shouldn't happen, and it shouldn't happen. Like, that funding announcement that they made about the port, that was made during the campaign. Provincial funds are not announced during provincial campaigns. It's prohibited. Federal funds are not announced during federal campaigns. It's prohibited. Those municipal funds should never have been announced during this municipal campaign. That was skating very close to the line. I would never do that, and I would put safeguards in place that would prevent me from doing that, but frankly, people that came after me, if I'm elected and there were other mayors that came after me, they wouldn't be able to do it either. You shouldn't make a municipal funding announcement during a municipal election. So, but those are the decisions that, the mayor's made. And it's not for me to judge her on those decisions. The community will. It's for me to just say to the community what my ideas and opinions are and what standard I'll hold myself to. I wouldn't use the mayor's office to campaign. I wouldn't make a municipal funding announcement during a campaign. But that's as far as I'm going to go with that. My campaign's not going to make any additional issues out of that.